Virginia Giuffre, who accused Prince Andrew of sexual assault, has died. Her family say that she took her own life.
Everything begins with a contradiction so shocking that even experienced court reporters paused when they saw the numbers. For years, the world believed that Virginia Giuffre, the woman whose allegations reshaped the life of the former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, had walked away from her legal battles with millions. Some estimates in public discussion had placed her settlement figures at more than $20 million. Whether those figures were accurate or inflated has always remained unclear because the exact numbers were never made public. But they were repeated often enough that they grew into something like common belief. And yet, when the dust settled around her estate after her tragic death, the documents revealed something drastically different. An estate valued at barely $500,000. It was a number that felt almost impossible, and it immediately raised a question that has now stunned observers around the world. What happened to the money? Before we dive in, there's something I need to share with you. Over the past few days, thousands have watched these stories unfold, but most haven't subscribed. If you're one of them, I invite you now to join us. Subscribe to Crownverse so you never miss the next chapter in this unfolding royal history. The story begins in Western Australia, far from Buckingham Palace, far from New York courtrooms, far from the scrutiny of global press conferences. It begins on a quiet farm where Virginia Giuffre, at just 41 years old, was found dead earlier this year. Police said the early indication was that there was no suspicion of foul play. Her family released a statement explaining that the emotional toll of her past trauma had weighed too heavily on her. She had been one of the most recognizable voices among Epstein's accusers, a central figure in one of the darkest scandals of modern royal history. Her allegations against Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and the former Duke of York transformed her into a symbol of survival, courage, and controversy, depending on who was speaking. But whatever the world believed about her, her death left behind a far more complicated legacy than anyone expected. After her passing, her two sons, Christian and Noah, launched a case in the Supreme Court of Western Australia to determine how her mother's estate should be handled. They expected, like many others, that the estate would contain significant assets, possibly including the large settlement amounts widely discussed in the media over the years. But when the documents were unsealed, those expectations were shattered. The estate listed a horse, 2 cars, the contents of her modest country home, some jewelry, personal effects, shares in a small private company named Whitty River Pty Ltd, and a potential right to future royalties from her memoir, titled Nobody's Girl. In total, the assets amounted to just over $470,000. That was the official figure. Not millions, not tens of millions, less than $500,000. And that is where the mystery begins, because whether the rumors of massive settlements were exaggerated, misunderstood, or entirely accurate, the disappearance of such expected wealth has now become one of the most puzzling elements of this entire case. It is important to say clearly, claims about what she received financially have always been unverified. Those figures were never officially published, and they may have been inflated through speculation. But even with that said, the gap between what was believed publicly and what is now documented officially is enormous. And it raises questions that no one seems prepared to fully answer. The legal battle has brought more complexity than anyone anticipated. 2 unexpected individuals were named as defendants in the estate case: her former lawyer, Carrie Jean Loudon, and her housekeeper, Cheryl Mary Myers. The details of why they were included remain largely confidential, though both women have filed counterclaims estimating the estate at around $500,000. The court appointed an administrator, lawyer Ian Blatchford, to handle all aspects of the estate going forward. That includes any ongoing legal matters in the United States, particularly her unresolved case involving Ghislaine Maxwell. Even after her death, the legal threads tied to her continue to pull on powerful people and institutions. Observers quickly noticed that the financial records submitted to the court made no mention of any large settlement amounts, no trace of millions in any form, no bank accounts, no investment portfolios, no property holdings, no significant corporate shares, nothing of the magnitude that the public had long assumed. Could the money have been spent over time? Possibly. Could it have been distributed privately before her death? It is a theoretical possibility, but completely unverified. Could her legal fees over the years have consumed significant amounts? Some analysts believe that is likely, but again, the specifics remain unknown. Could there have been financial arrangements protected by confidentiality clauses? Also possible, but purely speculative. Every potential explanation exists only in theory, without confirmation. What makes the situation even more intriguing is how it intersects with the British royal family's most haunting scandal of the last decade. Virginia Giuffre's accusations against Prince Andrew were at the heart of the turmoil that forced him to step down from public duties, renounce his HRH title, and retreat from public life. The settlement between them was confidential. Andrew has always maintained his complete innocence, denying all allegations. But the public perception of that settlement, whatever its true figure may have been, has always been that it was significant. Some tabloids guessed it was a few million, others claimed numbers far higher. None of those amounts were ever confirmed. And now, with this new court information, people are asking whether those earlier numbers were inaccurate from the very beginning. The reappearance of this story has forced Prince Andrew's name back into global discussion, something the royal family has spent years trying to avoid. It is important to be fair and precise. This new court case does not implicate Andrew in any wrongdoing. It does not reopen any case against him. It does not make new allegations. His name is present only as historical context because Virginia Giuffre was one of his public accusers in her civil suit, which he chose to settle out of court while continuing to deny the allegations. But the public does not separate history so easily. Any headline involving her inevitably revives discussion about him. And now, with questions swirling about financial figures, missing millions, and disputed expectations, the story gains new intensity. At the recent hearing in Perth, the court considered whether two additional family members, Virginia's daughter, whose identity is protected, and her ex-husband, Robert Giuffre, should be added as plaintiffs in the estate case. Their potential involvement could expand the complexity of the legal dispute. Family members sometimes have competing claims or differing understandings of financial history. Their addition could bring new information to light, or it could deepen the mystery even further. At this moment, it remains unclear which direction it will go. Journalists were also present at the hearing, pushing for access to documents. The court agreed to release the statement of claim and the defense filings with redactions. That means more information will soon enter the public domain. And whenever new documents appear in cases tied to Epstein, Maxwell, or anyone connected to them, media attention intensifies. For the royal family, this represents renewed pressure, because the public inevitably wonders what else remains hidden, what else might emerge, and how far the ripple effects may spread.
The administrator appointed to manage her estate will now take the lead on all remaining legal matters. One of the most unusual aspects of this case is that the estate will continue to represent Virginia in ongoing litigation in the United States. This means her role as a plaintiff survives beyond her life. Her story continues in courtrooms thousands of miles away, and every development in those cases has the potential to generate headlines that remind the world of her past allegations, her role in the downfall of Epstein's network, and the scandals that shook the royal family. For many observers, the central emotional tension of this case is not legal, it is human. Virginia Giuffre's journey was one of extreme trauma, fierce advocacy, public battles, and private struggles. Whether one considers her a hero, a survivor, a controversial figure, or something in between, her story was filled with storms that few individuals could endure. That she died so far from the noise of global attention created a tragic contrast between the quiet of her final days and the magnitude of the story she carried. Now her children are fighting in court not only to resolve her estate, but to understand what remains of the life she built after emerging from the shadows of her past. Some people online have speculated about the nature of her death, but there is no evidence supporting any conspiracy. Authorities have said clearly that the early indication was that the death was not suspicious. Any theories beyond that are unverified claims with no factual basis. But this is the nature of public scandals. Rumors thrive in the spaces where facts are incomplete. A woman who spent years at the center of a global storm will inevitably leave behind questions that some will try to answer with imagination instead of evidence. That is why, in reporting stories like this, it is crucial to maintain clarity, precision, and a distinction between fact and speculation. The financial contradiction at the center of this case, less than $500,000 officially versus years of public belief in multi-million-dollar settlements, will remain one of the most debated aspects of the story. If the public figures were exaggerated, the question becomes, how did this belief spread so widely? If the settlement money was real but no longer exists, the question shifts, where did it go? And if confidentiality agreements prevent disclosure of certain financial details, the question becomes, will the truth ever be known? These are open questions. None have confirmed answers today. And until documents or testimony reveal more, they remain unverified areas of speculation. The royal family, as always, will avoid direct comment. Their approach has been consistent: silence, distance, and the hope that time will allow public attention to move elsewhere. But each new dispute, each legal filing, each line in a court document threatens to reopen conversations they desperately want closed. Even when the story is not about them directly, the shadow of their past involvement hovers in the background. As the case continues, more documents will be filed, more hearings will be scheduled. More journalists will dig through court records looking for details that connect this latest chapter to the broader narrative of Epstein, Maxwell, and the powerful figures who were caught in their orbit. For now, all we know is that the estate is far smaller than expected, the legal conflict is active, and the mystery surrounding the missing millions, if they ever existed, remains unresolved. In the new year, the court will reconvene to manage the next steps of the case. By then, more documents may be public, more parties may be added, and more questions will undoubtedly emerge. But one thing is certain: this story is far from over. It is another chapter in a long, painful, and complex history that stretches across continents, courtrooms, and institutions. And whether intentionally or not, it once again pulls the former Prince Andrew's name back into the global conversation. Not because of new allegations, not because of new evidence, but because history has a way of resurfacing when least expected. As we follow the next developments, the world waits to see whether this legal case will reveal answers about Virginia Giuffre's finances, her memoir, her unresolved U.S. proceedings, and the deeper layers of a life shaped by trauma, survival, and controversy. For now, all we can do is watch, analyze, and try to understand the truth buried beneath the headlines.